Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our show and welcome to the South London Israel Forum's talk, in which we are hosting a guest from Israel, Faygle arrived on Friday, you said, from Israel. Although we are a small group of people here, Faygle, we have members of different synagogues sitting in front of you right now because a South London Israel Forum event. Before I let Faygle impress us with her presentation, with her talk, I would like to actually read her bio, which is very, very impressive. I got the permission from her to go through it. Faygle Train is the operations manager of Gazelle Valley in Jerusalem, Israel's biggest urban nature site, and Nature Israel's contribution to endangered mountain gazelle rehabilitation. In addition to her fieldwork, Faygle has also written for Nature Israel startup Nature, a wetlands rewilding initiative to support millions of migrating birds. Faygle was born and raised in Toronto, Canada, where she completed a BFA honors and BEd from York University. Her childhood camping in Canada inspired her interest in conservation. As a teenager, she became one of the youngest ever volunteers at the Toronto Wildlife Center. She immigrated to Israel in 2010, where during a decade as a teacher and program manager for educational NGOs. She also volunteered for a year in rural Nepal. By experiencing firsthand the impact of the climate crisis on human health in vulnerable communities, Faygle was inspired to complete an MA in environmental studies at Tel Aviv University. She has also completed professional training in wild animal management via the Israel Nature and Parks Authority in 2024 and pedagogy at David Yelling College in 2013. In her current position as operations manager of Gazelle Valley, Faygle is responsible for all people, plants, and animals in the site. Her duties include collaborating with animal welfare partners such as the Israel Nature and Parks Authority and Israel Zoo Association to ensure the safe diet, breeding, rewilding, and death management of the site's fauna. She supervises the site's flora to ensure appropriate planting, pruning, disease management, and invasive species eradication. With a diverse professional team, she assesses the health of the site's water circulation system. A IUCN recognized climate change mitigation strategy for Jerusalem's runoff water. Faygle also oversees visitors and volunteer experience, manages logistics between municipal and national partners, and trains national service staff. Finally, she participates in conservation work for the site's new observatory. In addition to her nature work, Faygle is a dialogue activist. She most recently participated in We Are the Place, a bilingual Arabic Hebrew theater company at Tel Aviv University. Previously, as a teacher in the Armenian church in Jerusalem Old City, Faygle founded a model UN debate team that participated in both Israeli and Palestinian competitions. She facilitated an interfaith encounters partnership with Kashet School. She has also represented the Voice of Judaism at interfaith conferences like the International Conference on Religions and Sustainable Development Goals in the Vatican, Rome. Faygle recognizes the nature is shared between all peoples, firmly believing in the importance of the Nature Israel's work as a method of healing and uniting people of all backgrounds. Research and writing also constitutes a large part of Faygle's career. Through her work at the Interfaith Center for Sustainable Development, she was a contributing author to both volumes of the Eco Bible edited by Rabbis Jonathan Neril and Leo D. She was also an expert consultant and subsequent contributing author towards promoting freedom of religions, of belief, and gender equality in the context of sustainable development goals, a focus on access to justice, education, and health, which was published by the Danish Institute for Human Rights and presented to the United Nations in 2020. Wow. It's such a privilege, such an honor to have you, Faygle. Floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It's you can all hear me? Yes, this might be a little easier. Thank you so much. I know we have people from a few different shuls and synagogues in the area, so thank you all for coming out tonight. I look forward with sharing nature's incredible beauty with all of you. And of course, if there are questions at the end, feel free to ask. I think the rabbi is going to come around and help me. I forgot some of that was in my bio. Nice to hear. Yeah. This is for our friends on the computer. So a little introduction. We obviously have a beautiful photo here. This talk tonight will not just be about the beauty of nature. We're talking a little bit in context after October 7th, how we've been healing nature, but now how nature is healing us. Really the healing power of nature. Yeah, and I can go. It's a wonderful screen. I know. And while there we go. I was about to say, I can tell you quickly, some of the topics today are what is even biodiversity or nature, for those of us who don't know so well. A little introduction to the organization I work for, SBNI. I am going to discuss our new ecotherapy program. In other words, what we've been doing since October 7th. As well as 3 different examples. Yeah, no, I can do it. I can do it. 3 different examples of programs that we're working with. We work with conservation in Israel. Oh, there we go. Our biodiverse Israel, we have obviously 3 very different types of environments. I'm sure some of you have been, if not all of you have been to Israel on different trips. You might have seen the deserts, you might have been to our forests. Israel is an incredibly biodiverse area. Biodiversity simply means the different types of organisms on Earth, at the ecosystem level, at the environment level, or the ecosystem level, all the different things that create a healthy planet, healthy air. Israel is actually a global biodiversity hotspot, and that means that we have a higher number of natural animals and plants that are native to this land, but we also have a higher number of endangered animals or plants. Oh. Is that me? Oh, that's not me. Oh dear. It might just be. Sorry about this, everyone. Okay, well, we continue to work through that. Is it on the screen? Oh dear, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. The pictures make it very exciting, and I do hope they'll be back up soon. In the meantime, just explaining what it is that makes Israel so unique is only 3% of the entire planet is considered a biodiversity hotspot. Only 3% of the whole planet has such a range of species of plants and animals, and is really an area of conservation concern, those areas we want to protect. In Israel, a really fantastic statistic, we have 3.5% of all species known on Earth in this tiny little country, Israel. So when you think of how big Great Britain is, and I do have the numbers up there eventually, we just have that much more biodiversity in such a compact space. Israel has that much more. Oh. Yeah, nature and technology sometimes go hand in hand. A little introduction to our organization. We have a few flyers outside for those who haven't taken them yet. They're on the table. This, there you go. I represent SBNI, the Society for the Protection of Nature in Israel. We are Israel's oldest and largest NGO, or non-government organization, charity. We have been around for 70 years this year, which is amazing. We've been fighting since the 1950s to save plants and animals, water systems, all sorts of natural spaces in Israel, starting with the Hula Valley and water, and going to all the many, many projects that we have today. The 4 major areas we work in are conservation. So people like me, if you saw the picture of me and the turtle, we go onto sites and we help maintain healthy soil, healthy water. We work with the plants, we work with the animals. We do a lot of advocacy, working with the government or sometimes against the government to make sure that nature is healthy and that people can access nature. We do a lot of education, of course, lots of work in schools with children during vacations. And we also work with ecotourism. So for any of you who are planning a trip to Israel, you can obviously visit one of our natural sites. That's a great thing to do. The pictures make it, you know, lots of pictures of happy animals. It will come up, you will see it, don't worry. Obviously, I see some of you also with the yellow pins. One of the big reasons we're here now, it's been nearly a year since October 7th. I don't need to tell you how traumatic it's been for the entire country, because it's been traumatic for all Jewish people. It has been a very, very difficult year. And after the outbreak of war, within 2 days of the war, my organization, SBNI, was already trying to come up with new activities and ways of responding to what was going on around the country. I can tell you, having been there, of course, everything shut down. Nobody knew what to do. Children were displaced from their homes or not going to school. And within 2 days, we were already putting together activities. And the first group that we really tried to focus with to provide some respite, to provide something to take their minds off of war and trauma and sirens and being displaced, was youth, children, and teenagers. We started with a lot of digital activities, just like this, having all sorts of lectures that even Israelis abroad were tuning into because they needed to find a way to connect with Israel while this was happening. We also began, of course, activities in person for displaced children. So for example, we opened up all of our field schools. Field schools are basically schools that children can visit, learn about natures with their teacher. And we had over 200 families living in these schools, living all together. We had about 800 children, and those 800 children were getting help from our guides. Our guides were volunteering and working with teachers and working with the students to make sure that children weren't being left behind, that children had something fun and engaging. We also started to work more with displaced teenagers. If any of you have met a teenager, you know that, sometimes it's a little bit challenging. Imagine your poor teenager now having to live with a few other 100 people when all they want is their own space. Those poor teenagers, we designed some special programs for that. Oh, actually, let's stop there for a moment. This is just to show you the difference between Great Britain and Israel. I do think the numbers tell quite a story. We are so much smaller in terms of area, and yet we have about double the species of plants. We do have more birds species. We have vastly more numbers of fish and reptile species than you do in Great Britain. I was shocked when I was researching. There are only 6 species of reptiles in this whole region. You have 3 snakes and 3 lizards, which are lovely, but we have quite a bit more. We have about 100. They're still making it work. But you can already see a couple of the nice pictures. This is the Dead Sea. I'm sure many of you have been. The Dead Sea is a great example of what makes our environment so unique. It's the lowest place on Earth. It's an incredible salty, briny pool. There's life in the area and the desert that surrounds it. And that's a picture of just a few different species of flowers, all growing in one tiny plot of land beside my office. So even in the tiniest sections of land in Israel, you can have biodiversity that is quite stunning. Okay, it's working? Yeah, it works. Go ahead. Okay. There will be a test on these numbers after. The winner gets a pamphlet. When I was a teacher, oh, here we go. This is a picture of our activities and one activity, a tour and our logo. We can move ahead. Would you like me to try clicking now? Oh, again, the 4 areas in which we work. And we can skip this for now. Nature is very important. Israel, yeah, let's keep going. We can keep going from here. One more. Here, stop, go back. And I, if you'd like, I can, it's down? Up and down, perfect. So, yeah. So as we've already obviously addressed, and I'm sure other speakers in your community have talked about, the war has been traumatic. One of the areas we began to work with, starting to see all these displaced families and all these Israelis talking to us, was the mental health toll of war. These statistics are, a little generous. About 1 in 3 Israelis are suffering from post-traumatic stress, and that can include not sleeping well, struggling at work, anxiety, and about 5% are suffering from extreme PTSD. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of people that need some sort of mental health support. They're traumatized. The Ministry of Health in Israel has been reaching out to organizations and individuals and saying, help us. We need new solutions. We also need non-medical solutions, nothing related to pharmacy, because you can only imagine hundreds of thousands of people all trying to get the same drug to support themselves. So we needed new solutions. I have an excellent partner now. The science here is very clear. Nature heals. Since the 1980s in Japan, when they coined the term forest bathing, people have started to talk about how nice nature is. You can just look at this picture. Wouldn't that be a nice walk? You go rambling in the UK, that's the term. Since then, a lot of scientists have been working with the topic, researching it, And we know that spending time in nature, going to the beach in Brighton and looking at the waves, or going outside, sitting under the tree, it's going to reduce your cortisol, or the stress hormone. It's going to boost your endorphins, your dopamines, all the happy hormones in you. And looking at the statistics, we said, we've got to work with this. This has to be part of our solution. So here we have, this is exactly where I left off, our displaced youth. So here's a picture of one of the field schools. The picture on the left is a group of grade 3 students from Kibbutz Be'eri, which, for those who remember the name, is one of the communities most impacted by war. It was one of the biggest massacres. The students now have a safe place. They're still with their friends. They can find a sense of belonging together in nature. We have a picture over here of one of our solutions for teenagers. Teenagers were going crazy with all these other people, not having their friends, being displaced to different areas. We created 3-day wilderness camps, no phones. So you have to only talk to each other and look at nature, no playing on your phone. And they would go trekking, stargazing, activities that boosted their adrenaline, but in a healthy way, nothing related to the anxiety of war. No, it's the one of the names for Israel is the startup nation, because we're so good with technology. But you've discovered my secret. I am not one of those. I work with the animals. Okay, this is, and then, yeah, that's the one. And then hopefully it will move nicely. Yeah, this is just one very powerful story. I think it represents very well what our programs were doing for the teenagers who were part of them. This young man on October, well, not this particular young man, we didn't want to use his real picture. On October 7th, I was on the kibbutz with my father. We barricaded ourselves in with the kibbutz's security team and made Molotov cocktails side by side, not knowing whether we would survive or die together. I went from being a child to a soldier. Going on our wilderness camp was the first time I could breathe in months. On the first day, I felt I was no longer the same age as my peers. But during the second day, I returned to being a teenager, allowing myself to make jokes for the first time since the attack. In other words, being outside, being in nature, being forced to engage with other people can crack some of that trauma. Oh, we're good. We're getting this. Once we realized we had a solution for the children, we reached out to whole families of displaced individuals. And we've since hosted over 7,500 people at our many, many events. We run tours, activities, and one of the main characteristics of these events is we host them in free natural spaces, places like Gazelle Valley, where I work. This is a picture of one of my young workers teaching children how to make gazelle footprints from plaster. And they learn about gazelles, they go out, they find the footprints, they make footprints, they take it home, they're engaged, they're learning, doing something new. And lots of other free places in Israel so that these families who've lost so much can come back for free as often as they would like. The next target area were reservists, those serving in the army. A statistic that's quite sad. This is the most prolonged mobilization of reservists or people in Miluim in Israel's history. Over 360,000 Israelis have been going in and out of the war since it began. I obviously have many, many personal examples of friends who spent over 200 days, some well over 200 days on a battle zone. And that's leaving behind, for many of them, a young family, a spouse, and the children who are wondering where their mother or father are. We saw the trauma that these families were beginning to face, being left alone and not knowing what's happening to your spouse. And we've organized about 30 different activities with local cities for these families, something for young children to do. Again, all of it outside, just to spend time outside, breathing fresh air and space for the children to run around. We've had incredible success. It's been just under a year, and we've already started to see the results of the work we've done with the communities. This is a photograph from a conference with the Oranim Academic College. The title of the conference was Building Resilience and Rehabilitating Communities Utilizing Nature's Healing Power. In other words, communities need nature. Nature makes them feel better. We are currently now beginning to promote ecotherapy around the country with the Ministry of Health. We're also organizing a conference for medical professionals. So to invite therapists, to invite doctors, surgeons, doesn't matter. Come learn about how maybe prescribing time in nature can actually help your patients. It's being done in the United States and Canada. Why can't we do it in other countries? And one more. Okay, the other side of the impact, not just the professionals, we have had over 105,000 Israelis participating in person or in our virtual activities since November 2023. 97% of the displaced youth, when we asked them, said they feel a reduction in anxiety. They're less stressed out, they're less scared. 97% of parents also said that these experiences were significant for their children. They felt better afterwards. So how exactly does nature make us feel better? And what is the nature in Israel that's making us feel better? By a quick show of hands, who has been to Israel? Okay, you might see some sites here that shock you. Go ahead. The first is where I spend all my time, Gazelle Valley, Jerusalem. This is a photo by one of our volunteers, and you'll hear more about the volunteers shortly. Gazelle Valley is Israel's biggest urban nature site. There we go. You can see this is a map of Jerusalem. The old city is on the far side, and the green triangle at the bottom is Gazelle Valley. It looks about half the size of the old city. For those who know the old city, it is 250 dunams, or about 64 acres. And it's an incredible story of the normal average citizens seeing this beautiful green area of land threatened with development. The city had just put in the new highway, the Faygle highway, and a herd of 33 gazelles started to get hit by cars. People were moving in. That meant dogs. Dogs were starting to eat the gazelles. And the people said, we can't keep building this up. We can't put more buildings in. Let's save one of the biggest and best green spaces in the city. And it was the normal citizens themselves fighting for almost 20 years. They managed to save this green space. This is just a quick drone image. You can see the highway, you can see the main street. This is just a neighborhood where people live. Those who live right beside it can come. We have people that bring their cup of coffee and they just walk down to the valley and meditate. They say their morning prayers in this green space. And this is just one little corner of the valley. This is our big lake. What is the nature that people come to see when they're coming to meditate, feel better? We have lots of groups of soldiers and displaced families coming. What is the nature that they love to see and get excited by? Gazelle Valley, I think, has most of it, if not all. We have currently about 140 gazelles, although I have a few pregnant right now, so we can guess almost 150 soon. That number is actually only 3% of the entire gazelle population in Israel. We have about 250 species of birds, which is nearly half of all of Israel's bird species. It's a very popular space for people who like birds. And in fact, David Attenborough sent a team last year to film our swifts flying over the lake. So we are Sir David Attenborough approved. We have quite a few species of reptiles and amphibians, including the protected tortoise in the corner over there. We are one of only 2 spots in the entire country that has a tortoise rehabilitation program. We are recognized by the government for our skill in working with wild animals, and 500 species of plants, and 2 ponds and 2 lakes. A big part of us healing nature, and it also healing us a little bit, is our releases. Since 2001, we've released 60 gazelles. We take them from our park. They're nice and healthy and hardy. We obviously check them before we release them. We send the best and the strongest out, and they strengthen the wild herds. Because they're endangered, we want good, strong animals out there breeding and making more of these incredible animals. Since 2019, we've released over 1,000 tortoises. We currently have 5 in our rehabilitation space right now. We do a lot of research with different universities and partnerships. We try to release them with GPS collars so we can do more research. And we recently started with Haifa University to do more research on how they survive in the wild, how we track them. And we're basically trying to prevent these animals from going extinct. People in the photos, some are volunteers. The hands are a national service or a bat sheirut. She's doing her service with us for a year. And the people who join these, who volunteer and who work with us, talk about how it's such a meaningful experience, how much joy it brings them. We protect nature. Again, it's giving us all that joy and excitement back. And here's just a quick picture of a gazelle with the ear tag. You can see it with the yellow ear tag. He successfully found a herd, and he's out there living his best life. And I'm sure we miss him, but he's doing well. And of course, no wonderful nature site would be complete without education, bringing the community together. Again, this is a site that needs a lot of help and helps a lot of people find a sense of purpose. We have activities, we have volunteers of all ages from age 14 and up for insurance reasons, of course. We have a lot this year, a whole new team of retired volunteers who some are up to their 90s and are coming and volunteering with us. We also, as you can probably see from some of the photos, we have all of our educational material in 3 languages, English, Hebrew, and Arabic. Our site is free to enter every single day of the year. We appeal to every demographic in Jerusalem. Everybody and anybody can come, can take out maps and guides, can have learning experiences because nature's for everybody. And the city of Jerusalem helps us run the site. And together, the Society for the Protection of Nature in Israel and the city of Jerusalem believe the site really should be for everybody. Startup nature. For those of you that don't like gazelles, we have the birds. You can see in the little map of the globe, Israel is in between 3 continents. We have Europe and Asia, and below we have Africa. Israel is one of the best spaces for birds to migrate. When they're leaving Europe and Asia during the cold winters, they fly through Israel. Israel is the last place for them to drink water and to eat food and to rest before they have to fly through a very long, very dry desert. They need Israel for a space to rest, to drink. However, oh no, we have drained 90% of our historic wetlands. Many of you, I'm sure, have heard of the Hula Valley. That's the classic example of draining the swamps to cure malaria, to create agriculture. But that has resulted in all these birds having nowhere to drink and nowhere to rest. So our goal today is to rewild or to put back 25 of those 25% of those swamps, those wetlands, for birds to have a place to stop and rest as they're migrating. We have about 500 million birds flying through Israel every year. This is not a few birds, this is millions. This is a huge percentage of birds out there. We already have 2 sites that have been around for a few years, and they have incredible hydrological systems. They have tourism spots, so you can go and watch the birds in these cute little houses. We're already designing all sorts of new educational activities, again, for people to go out and see nature. Many more species have come back. In fact, just after weeks of opening the site, some of the sites, we saw 85 species that hadn't been seen in Israel for years. Birds migrate using landmarks, but they also migrate using the Earth's magnetic fields. It's a very cool topic. And these birds basically sensed that there was water again, and they all came flooding back. We have pictures of a few, including the greater spotted eagle, the Phrygianus duck. We have 2 great breeding pairs at Gazelle Valley as well. We have the purple heron, you have the gray heron here in UK, and an African swamp hen. We work, of course, with international organizations, with local Israeli organizations. We're not just throwing buckets of water. We are trying to be as science-based as possible. And when the water comes back and the birds come back, it also means that the insects are coming back, the lizards are coming back, also mammals are coming back. We've seen an insurgence also of the endangered Eurasian otter, which is a really cute animal. And ecologically important, of course. And a last important point, like so many of our programs, we like to say nature knows no borders, because it's true. They're going to fly over Israel. They're going to fly other areas as well. In the picture on the very left is Yossi Leshem. If any of you are big bird people, you might have heard his name. He's one of Israel's biggest birders. And he has helped us create many programs that unite Israeli, Palestinian, and Jordanians, for example, over owls. He has a very famous program of saving the barn owls that's now being used in Greece and Morocco, basically going into these different communities in their language, using their culture to say, hey, why are you killing barn owls? And teaching them why they're amazing. He helped bring these birds off the brink of extinction in Israel. And now they're everywhere because of him. This is a picture of one of his Birds for Peace programs. We did have the program that you just saw, these rewilding these fish ponds for bird habitat. We were starting to bring it into Jordan. The Jordanian Center for Peace and Diplomacy was very excited to work with us. Because of October 7th, tensions are high, things are a little delayed, but we do hope when things are better, we'll go back to it, because the Jordanian border is right there. There's no reason why our nature and our birds shouldn't be healing them as well. Yes, and it's unfortunate. The last program I thought I would bring to you is the Blue Half. Again, if you don't like mammals or birds, we have fish for you. Israel and the work we at SBNI do relating to the water is a lot of conservation, helping the fish, the ecosystem, but this is a good example of our advocacy work, working with the government or working against the government, depending on what needs to be done. People don't usually think about water and the oceans and the seas, but that's actually the name of this program, the Blue Half, because half of Israel and our land and our space is water. The Mediterranean Sea and what's considered territorial Israel and the Red Sea, leaving Israel, it's all water. It's over 4,000 square kilometers. And we have a lot of diversity that once you start to think about it is pretty incredible. We have sharks, we have seals, we have tropical fish, we have spawning grounds and sea turtles of different species. I've listed some of the rare habitats like canyons and cold seeps, terms that you might have never heard of, but are very, very unique to Israel and certain ecosystems. And if this wasn't enough, if it wasn't enough to just look at nature and say, wow, nature is amazing, you can say, okay, I'm a human, I'm selfish. How does it help me? The sea is incredible. It provides us with oxygen. A huge, overwhelming majority of medicines now being designed come from the sea. It comes from algae or fish proteins or organisms found in the sea. There is so much research into medicine coming from water and coming from the life in water. Protein, a huge percentage of the world has their main source of protein from fish or shrimp or octopus. Many people need fish to survive. Ecotourism provides a lot of people with money. Think of Brighton. And desalination resources, we can take even salty water and turn it into fresh water and heal ourselves that way. Go down again. That being said, as amazing as it all is, just like I've been hearing more and more, some of the water issues in the UK, we have our issues as well. Some of the big issues, well, one of the main ones is only 4% of our waters are protected. That means you can go fishing, you can leave your nets behind to catch fish, you can potentially pollute, you can go on an oil boat and oil might spill. We really want to protect this because, again, think of all those people that can be going and getting some sort of therapy or joy or calm from being near the water. One example I really want to bring you of our organization fighting to make sea better, make all the water better, is the topic of oil spills. In 2014, there was the worst ecological or environmental disaster in Israel's history. The EAAP, or the Europe-Asia Pipeline Company, unfortunately had a pipeline burst. It had 5 million liters of crude oil or petroleum spill out. And it spilled out all over Israel. A huge portion went into the Evrona Nature Reserve, which is pictured above. Crude oil, petroleum is not easily taken out of ecosystems. For anyone that doesn't know, you can't just pick it up. It seeps into soil, it seeps into things. They are still trying to deal with the oil in this nature reserve. Still today, there are bits left. Oil, as you can imagine, or oil transportation isn't great for human health either. There's pollution, it can damage water systems. So even though the pipeline company is now fighting to build more transportation in Ashkelon, my organization, along with 2 other environmental organizations, are trying to fight this from happening and saying it's not good for the environment and it's not good for the people that live in the environment. How are we supposed to breathe or farm if there is oil everywhere? We want to prevent this. This is just a quick picture to show you the damage, all the oil seeping down. The acacia trees in this picture, the acacia trees that were there at the time are okay. But since then, since 2014, no new trees are growing. The seeds are not viable. The ground is not viable. We've killed a huge portion of the nature there. This I'll just go over very quickly. We do a lot of legislation and reform work. We work with the government. We work against the government. We work with every single political party to say, hey, nature is worth saving. People are worth saving. Israel and the planet is worth saving. And whether it's holding policy conferences, working with the High Court of Justice, we even created a new app, which you'll see a picture in a moment. This is a beautiful Goldblatt grouper that we now have protected. Click. We have an app that helps people report any ecological damage they might see in the sea. So for example, if you're out with your family, walking your dog, and you see an injured sea turtle, you can report it. If you see somebody illegally fishing in a place where they're not supposed to, you can report it. This is another fish that we are helping to protect. And here is the app. It's already been downloaded over 15,000 times. This is a picture of, someone happy and using it. This is a picture of an invasive crab that now we're trying to get people to report it. So we're posting pictures of this everywhere. If you go to the beach and see it, tell us. We're going to try to get rid of them. They're hurting the native crabs and the native animals. And if you click, this is a round stingray. It's a protected animal. And a success story of our app, a group of students actually came across some fishermen illegally transporting them. They had fished them, stuck them in crates, and were going to sell them. And the students, recognizing that this was illegal, reported it. The SBNI team went, checked it out, and immediately brought in the authorities. And they were able to stop this from continuing to happen. The next steps. There's a lot that we've talked about, and I'm sure you're wondering, oh boy, what could we possibly do next? Here's the answer to all of that. Nature Heals. We are continuing now with 4-day programs for teenagers. We started with 3, but we saw how great that was. So let's take them out 1 day longer. We've developed a program with Dr. Yael Avrahami, who's a leading expert on wilderness education. And she's created a program based on survival skills. So not just stargazing and trekking, but how to survive out in the wild, how to tell your personal story. So for anyone who was severely traumatized by October 7th and the results, they can maybe tell their story a little bit better. And it's also community building. And you can see from this picture, some of the activities are not the easiest, but that's the point. It's the adrenaline and the strength and the helping each other to overcome any challenges in nature. Gazelle Valley, I could speak for hours about Gazelle Valley. We are currently trying to increase our gazelle releases. If you take one of the flyers, you can hear or read more about that. We have just started a new endangered plant project with the Hebrew University to protect even more endangered plants. We have new water research with the Geological Institute, and we are about to open that beautiful building in the corner, which is an observation center, an education center, even with a working laboratory. Very, very exciting, completely free. Anybody from any demographic can come in, learn, work. You just need to register in advance if you're a school and you want to use the laboratory. But nature and science and learning should be for everybody. Startup Nature, we're already up to about 20% of our big goals, which is amazing considering we only started a few years ago. Our new program is called Tapuz or Orange. And now we're looking at all these agricultural fish farms. And we're saying we could just turn them into wetlands and we could just reflood them, plant wild plants, let the birds come back. But now we're saying, hey, wouldn't it be great if we combined 2 things for the planet? And we're taking all this land and we're turning some of it into wetlands for birds and the other animals. And we're turning parts of it into renewable energy grids. So solar energy. So that way we can have something great for the birds and something great for people. And we're continuing, that's okay, we're continuing to rewild in other areas across Israel. And last but not least, the next steps for the blue half, for those of you, again, who love the fish, we are trying to create natural reserves of 30% of Israel's territorial waters. If you remember, we currently only protect 4%. That's a huge leap, and that would make a massive difference in protecting the coral reefs, in protecting spawning ground or where the fish lay their eggs. And if they can lay their eggs, that means there's more fish and also more food for people. Again, all this is connected. We want to keep protecting species. You see the great picture of the sea turtle leaving, and he has a GPS collar on his back. You can also see all the people. When we release sea turtles, thousands of people of all ages show up. It is exciting. You feel like you've saved the world. You know, it's one of the Jewish sayings, if you've saved one life, it's like you saved the world. People feel this way about our animals, really. And we also want to keep working with the government to promote better policy to make sure that everything is healthy the way it needs to be. Okay, you're sitting here in the lovely city of Wimbledon. What can you possibly do? First of all, it is lovely. Thank you for having me. I'm just going to do a few of these to you. One, if you're sitting at home here in Wimbledon or some of the neighboring places, I know you're from a few places, you can join our webinars. We have regular English lectures on Zoom, all sorts of topics. Here's a picture of one, the impact of war on Israeli animals. We just had one with one of my bosses on the love life of gazelles. If you're interested in love life of animals, it gets a little graphic, but I still think it's fun. So you can go and see that again on YouTube. Also, if you're sitting at home in Wimbledon or anywhere else, go check out our website, SBNI, because we have petitions. For those of you that are very, city conscious and world conscious and you want to make a difference, sign petitions, get active, see the politics of what we're fighting for and why. This is one about, quite simply, protecting nature, don't spill oil in Ashkelon. If you get on a flight and come visit us, we'd love to see you. First thing, get off the plane, download the app, Sea Watch. That's the app I mentioned. If you go to the beach in Tel Aviv and you see a sea turtle who's caught in a net, report it. You can join us on a tour. We have tours all over the country. Again, lots of them in English. So you don't need to feel like you need fluent Hebrew to be able to join us. And last but not least, we even sometimes have special tours. So you could come with a shul, you could come with your family, you can talk to us. We've done bar mitzvah and bat mitzvah activities. If you like nature, if your family likes nature, there's a way for you to get involved in any of these programs. I picked 3, but there's so much happening. And Israel is so incredibly beautiful, and people don't always know it. And with that, thank you for listening. If anyone has any questions, I don't know how we're doing for time.
We're fine. Can I suggest that you now use this? Right. And we give that to anybody that needs it. And that way thank you.
Oh, and share.
What an amazing presentation it was. Ready?
Yes.
Any questions?
Thank you. Excellent talk. I just want to say that you mentioned a book called Eco Bible. It's very good. I bought one and donated it to the Jewish Vegetarian Society's library. I recommend Wimbledon sure gets one. For years I've been going to Elat, and there used to be fish farms there, and then they stopped the fish farms. Was SPNI involved in that? Because apparently they're not very good for the environment.
Thank you for the question and the compliment. The Eco Bible is great. You can get it online. The fish farms are an interesting topic. A lot of them have sort of naturally disappeared because we're buying fish from countries like China where they're able to breed more fish. So in the areas where we are rewilding, the kibbutzim, the places that were creating these fish farms and maintaining them, stopped. They said there wasn't enough money in fish. The one specifically in Eilat, I can double check, it's most likely similar to that.
Right. And if I could ask again, I imagine that regarding food, you'd recommend people have free range organic meat. But what do you think about eating less animal produce? Because you need less land, better for the animals. What would you say on that?
I'm not sure what the SBNI's official statement is. I suspect they would say plant-based or eat more vegetables more often. My personal take, plant-based. Eat more vegetables, eat more fruit more often. Use that instead of meat, fish products. Again, lots of people, lots of different dietary restrictions, but most people can eat lots of vegetables. It is better for the planet. We know there's lots of research out there about the impacts of factory farming. Also, many of these farms are cruel to animals. There are people that will even say it's not kosher if the animals will suffer. But that might be a topic for another.
Oh,
Sorry.
right. Okay, so I didn't. Can I ask, have you been involved in conservation of any animals that are at risk? Have you had success stories in that?
So the question
Oh, the
is
gazelle, yeah.
success in rehabilitating animals. Our gazelle population is one of our big success stories. Their numbers really declined in the 1960s, again in the mid-1980s. We're at only about 5,000 left in the world, 4 to 5,000. The fact that our park went from 3 gazelles to about 150, with 60 of those so far being out in nature, and also many of the ones we've released have been released pregnant, and we catch photographs of them on field cameras in nature. We know that their babies are succeeding out in nature. It's a perfect example of a success story. We have quite a few. The pictures at the end, we had a few different fish that are now being protected, and that's legally in Israeli law that you can't fish these particular species. So birds, there's even rules about certain species of snakes and how to work with them. It's out there. We try to save a species daily, but you know, it's a process. But we really do have those numbers of this.
So I love your energy. I absolutely, and it's been such an informative evening. I especially like the way that you're working with teenagers, because besides the war, I think teenagers get forgotten, maybe not forgotten, but they're quite challenging to accommodate. And I just wonder, I've just been in Israel and I go 4 times a year. And I'd love to visit. Your tours, do they cater for disabilities, like for wheelchairs? Are they walking tours?
So it really depends on the tour. First of all, thank you for visiting. Please come visit us in the South Valley. It depends on the site. For example, some of the new sites with the startup nature,
Yes.
they do have more accessibility. Some of the older sites, accessibility is being assessed and taken into account. From Gazelle Valley's experience, I can tell you some of the paths are currently accessible, some are not. And me and another teammate of mine, she's recently undergone training in accessibility in Israel. And it's a conversation. Where do we have the time or the money or the skills to make nature accessible? There is a wonderful NGO that isn't ours, unfortunately, but every organization picks their topic. There's an NGO in Israel that makes nature sites accessible. And they've had a few parks, but they've built a whole series of wheelchair ramps so that people can go to these parks. Esme and I, if you talk to them, if you, let's say, are arranging a tour, you're obviously able to say, can it have less walking? Can there maybe be braille? There are sites in Israel that have some of these accommodations.
Thank you.
And I just have to say that also, unfortunately, in a country with a lot of war, there are people who need those accommodations. We know that. So it's being considered more and more how to adapt for a population that maybe has newer disabilities.
Thank you. And the second question is, where do you get your funding from?
That's an excellent question. Funding. Would you like to fund a gazelle's release or a tortoise's release? We are an NGO, so we do work with the government of Israel, but we also work, obviously, with donations. And the support we have from our friends in Israel and all over the world makes a huge difference. Also, some of our activities, for example, the educational activities for schools, we do often have schools pay, but I've seen it personally. If a school is displaced or is from a weaker socioeconomic background, we still want them to experience nature.
Thank you.
So if people want to make a donation following this meeting, I've got a little machine that is a card reader, and it'll go to Wimbledon, but then we'll pass it on to,
I will not use any donations to buy chocolate or coffee. I can almost promise that.
Sorry to budge in there. I'm Daniel. I'm one of the trustees of the UK branch of the SPNI. And I think it's been fantastic, really, to have Faygle here. And she's very modest in saying how he can help. I'm not going to be quite as modest. There is a UK SPNI website, and I urge you to go on it. If you have a spare £10 or 20 or whatever it is, that's the way you can donate towards the SPNI. All the money that is raised through the UK SPNI website goes to Israel. Okay, and to do all the wonderful work they do, it costs a lot of money as well, as you can imagine. So please be generous. Thank you.
I just also wanted to thank you for an absolutely beautiful talk. And I think it's the most positive thing I've heard for the last 11 months. Just as you say that nature, we look after nature, I think you've helped heal us a little bit this evening. I had two questions. One was, first of all, can you talk a little bit more about how you're working with the Arabs in Jerusalem, particularly since the 7th of October, because I can only imagine that must be quite difficult. And the second question was, does Israel have anything like forest schools, which we are relatively new in this country, but so obviously help children with a whole load of disabilities and autism, and it's another example of nature helping children. So just wondered how you do that.
So first of all, she complimented me. Thank you. But we really do believe that, and I can tell you, as somebody who works outside, sometimes on the really bad days, I take a secular site and I go and I cut the reeds, and getting out all your energy, helping an injured owl or cutting down the grass where it needs to be cut, it is so therapeutic. We know this. So I'm glad that these pictures, and of course, go to our website. We have so many incredible videos and pictures on the website that really are lovely to see. The easy question to answer, does Israel have forest schools? Absolutely. We have many different types of nature-based schools. The actual forest school, which is learning outside at least 3 days a week, we have a few on my site. Again, the Gazelle Valley is a city site. We have this year, 2 kindergartens, 2 grade 1, 2 grade 2, and then grade 3, they moved to a forest school in a different valley up the street that has no gazelles, but lots of porcupines. The bigger question of what we're doing with Palestinian or Arab demographics, we are continuing to work with them. First of all, many of them Israeli citizens who want to work with us. We have our Arabic education team. So the young woman who is in charge of that she's working nonstop and doing fantastic work. We have a lot of guides who are coming out working with schools. We've had this year more schools than ever from East Jerusalem, from Arab schools coming to our site, see nature, to spend time in nature. We are continuing to translate material to make it accessible. A lot of the work we do with the environment with Palestinian colleagues is not necessarily publicized. Unfortunately, some of that is for their own safety. It's not for their safety, because not everybody agrees with working with Israel. We also do recognize that there is an environmental impact of war. So there's also trying to minimize both how that impacts the environment for us, Gaza, or different parts, and how it impacts people. For example, there's been a lot more feral dogs coming out of Gaza, attacking, Israeli farm animals or pets. So it's trying to think about how we live together, how we work together, how to minimize any of those damages, both to people and to the environment. But it's still happening. It doesn't happen as much on the news, perhaps, But we are still neighbors, we're still living together. And many of us are trying to make it work.
So I used to live in Beit Zait. Is anything happening in that area at all? Just outskirts of Jerusalem? Do you have any?
I'm trying to remember Beit Zait on the map. Is there a Nachal?
Yeah, it's
It's
like a
not-
little village just before you
Nachon.
enter Jerusalem. There is like a
Nachon, I don't think we're doing anything particular there. We might have friends of espionage who are in Beit Zait. I think it's pretty on its own.
Yeah,
It seemed, from the last time I was there, it seemed happy.
yeah.
I can double check that for you though, but
Okay,
it's
and-
not one of the big target areas.
No. And where's the main Gazelle Valley in Jerusalem? Where is it?
Gazelle Valley, for those who know, Jerusalem is at the cross of the Begun Highway. We are right in between the zoo and the botanical gardens, who are both our friends and we work together. It's in a neighborhood called Givat Mordechai.
Oh, no.
You can't really miss it.
Okay, thank you.
And if you do, you can call me and I'll come
Yeah.
get you.
I'll definitely will visit you.
Yeah. Again, we're free from sunrise, 6:30 in the morning until sunset, every single day.
Okay, great. תודה רבה.
בבקשה. Nobody's asking about the gazelle's love language because you're all going to go watch it, I can tell.
Thank you very much for your wonderful talk. I'd like to know something about any art and craft activities you do with the children in the park.
So arts and crafts in the park. One of the first rules is we try not to create too much waste. So we actually have, what is it in English? Art from nature. So for example, creating mobiles and, pretty dioramas using natural materials. So if a kid throws a pine cone or a pebble or a stick, it's not going to hurt the environment. We try to minimize paint and crayons. We've done, last Sukkot, we made huge mandalas, and every day new families would come and would place all the plants and the different pieces of nature in these beautiful, intricate circles. We have pictures on our website. We, for example, in the picture I showed you of the displaced families, we have been engaging children in making plaster casts of footprints. The new educational center we're opening in the Gazelle Valley will have obviously some games and educational activities. I'm an artist in my spare time when I have spare time. We have a lot of artists on our team. We have national service members throughout Israel that are using their musical skills to write songs about nature for their, for social media. I had a young man last year making videos explaining nature terms with little cartoon animals, so using his graphic skills. Different nature sites, for example, the Jerusalem Bird Observatory. Last year, they also had some very artistic people on staff who also created all sorts of really cute games and activities with the families. It depends who's available and what their artistic skills are. But we really, really love photography, of course. And there's also a lot of drawing, people looking at botany, looking at plants, and people looking at birds and drawing intricate designs based on that.
I think we've had a lot of questions. Can I just take a moment to say thank you? What a wide brief. What an enormous range of topics you've covered. I mean, I really wasn't expecting it to be so broad. I thought there'd be a few topics about nature, but you've gone from land-based to sea-based to air-based. You've gone from therapy to conservation to rescuing. We've covered almost every topic and much linked also to the trauma that everybody's going through at the moment and the way that nature can contribute. So I think just one great big thank you very much, and you show it in the usual way.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
I really do appreciate it. It's obviously been a very difficult year for all of us and for Jews across the world, and finding a little bit of joy the way we do in what we have for free on this planet and protecting it. It's really an honor, and now it's so exciting and an honor to be able to share that with other communities.
Thank you.
And thank you for your patience with the computer. We have a wonderful digital team.
Well,
We made it work. We made it work. I did not.
It was so amazing.